What's up, PC Familia members and sports fans around the world? Welcome back to another edition of Press Coverage Sports, brought to you by Persistence Media. And we are at the Mel Eats Yellow Table, which is a meal prep which is full of options to help you track all your macros. They have tons of meal options, always a new weekly special. I just had my peanut Thai chicken salad with white rice, and it was on fire today. So I highly suggest you go on Mel Eats Meal and place your order today through IG. Don't let another day go by without some Mel Eats meals in your life. But with no further ado, let me bring in my co-host, Mr. Jeremy Schiffman. Welcome back to the Yellow Table.
Yes, sir. Jason, it feels great to be back. Feels like we never left, and I am glad to be here to recap a little Super Bowl and look forward to what we got ahead of us with the NBA and everything else going on.
Yeah, man. I mean, Super Bowl recap, like you said. So it came to quite the finale, which also means, though, that we get into the NFL offseason, too, which I also love, man. So it's like NFL is going to be at the forefront of my sports mind over the next few months as we start transitioning into basketball and baseball. It's going to stay there, but we got to talk about the big game, man.
Oh yeah, great one.
Yeah. So Super Bowl recap. Let's just get into it. How do you feel about the Super Bowl? Was it what you thought it was going to be with those two heavyweights going at it?
We got a great game from the fan base. It was great. We saw two quarterbacks that were the top two MVP award winners this year that really played at their highest level in this game. So watching Jalen Hurts not only live up to the hype, but in some ways exceed it. He outpassed Patrick Mahommes in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
4 total touchdowns.
By a lot.
He had, now the term that everyone's enamored with, he had an octopus, which doesn't happen often, where you score the touchdown and then the 2-point conversion and all 8 points are attributed to one player. That's called an octopus.
Dope. I didn't hear that.
Football. Yeah,
dropping knowledge.
It was like a gambling prop. Will anyone score an octopus in the game? And that was one of the prop bets that I seen going in. So any of you that had that octopus out there, Jalen Hurts cashed that ticket for you. But getting back to the game itself, Jalen Hurts over 300 pass yards, like I mentioned, 70 rush yards, 4 total touchdowns, the game-tying 2-point conversion with, 4 minutes left in the game. He brought his team down time and time again. He looked pretty good as a passer. Deep passes to Devontae, deep passes to A.J. Brown. He was looking as great as of a quarterback that he could ever look. And then Patrick Mahommes still comes away victorious, only passing for 182. That's where I felt a little, what is going on in this game when you actually go back and look at the stats? But from my standpoint, we had 2 great heavyweights, the 2 best teams, the 2 number 1 seeds, the 2 best players, both quarterbacks, going all the way down to the wire. But we got a little marred by a penalty. How'd you feel about the penalty? Was that the right call, the wrong time to call that call?
I'm in agreement with you. You know, it's like, you look at the stats, and you're like, Mahomes only 180-something. If you just told me, hey, Mahomes is only going to pass for 180 and Jalen's going to go off for 3+ and 4 TDs, who wins the game? I would have bet a lot of money on the Philadelphia Eagles that game. So I'm in the same boat with you where I feel like we got gypped, but really the Chiefs just came to play. Jalen did have a big play where he fumbled away the ball, and that was directly big, huge play, because I thought they were going to, when I'm watching the game, I'm sitting there with my family and a couple of friends that were over, and I'm like, man, this is going to be the foot on the throat drive. I thought Jalen was going down there to ice it, and then out of nowhere, the ball just slipped out of his hands. And I was like, oh my God, no, this can't be part of the script. What's going on here?
Where's the script?
No, but I mean, that kind of stuff just happens, when you're pumped up, you think about the bigger things instead of littler things. And that ball just slipped out of his hands. To get to your point, though, I'm always bummed out when a call ends it. Let's be real. That call ended it. Philly had no chance after that call. And the part that
they did, but you have to give credit and the wherewithal to Jerick McKinnon going down. He could have scored the touchdown. They would have went up 7. There's still a minute 20.
He knew they were letting him go. There's been too many people. There's been too many moments now in football where if you have half a damn brain.
But let's just look at the Seahawks and Patriots. They still have the ball at the 1. I get it. They only needed a field goal, but you want to score a go-ahead touchdown with under 2 minutes in the Super Bowl? Jerick McKinnon had a wide open lane. to have that instinct of, if I go down, we essentially end the game. Like, you got to give him kudos. But you're correct. That flag essentially led us to win it.
McKinnon put more faith in Harrison butt kicker than he did himself that day by sliding down at the 1.
Right.
But it's been a known fact now. I think Todd Gurley was famously tried to do it and stop, drop, and rolled into the end zone one game or something like that.
That happened.
So I mean, it's been a thing now for a while. So kudos to McKinnon not being too pumped up, and it's it's one of the most unselfish things you could do. Because I mean, if you're a football player your whole life, what do you dream of? Scoring touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
To win the game, essentially.
Yeah. So Jerick McKinnon may never have that chance again. I hope you get one, Jet, and you get in there and you get to spike that football on the biggest stage. But if not, big props to that. But it's always a bummer when it ends on a call, and especially when they haven't been calling it. Let's be real. Everybody gets hung up on Bradbury when he's behind Juju Smith-Schuster, what they kept showing famously on the Super Bowl.
Before that.
It was on the line of scrimmage. He does a little shimmy to get off the line of scrimmage, and he's going right, and then he breaks to go left, and you literally see
the jersey snag.
Yes, and Bradbury was wearing the wrong colored gloves. If you're going up against white jerseys, you wear white gloves. You don't wear your colored gloves. I mean, it's easy to spot.
DD's perspective right there.
Come on, Bradbury. You had a great year, and now here you are, a free agent, and that was the last play you got on tape for the Eagles. Not a good look, my man. But what kills me is they weren't calling it all game.
Yeah.
I guarantee that wasn't the first time you did that move, Bradbury, and I guarantee him it wasn't the first time that the Chiefs did it. There was no such defensive holding calls up to that point, and at that point, there had only been 47 yards of penalty yards in the game. It was a nice, clean game. The refs were letting them play, and then you throw that one. On top of it, I don't even think the pass was catchable. It wasn't going to be catchable.
Yeah, agreed. Wasn't that within 5 yards? Don't they get that leverage to jostle around within the 5 yards of the line of scrimmage?
You could jostle, but you can't hold. So he's seen a clear jersey movement, and I think the referee called it a restricting jersey tug or something like that. So if he would have just went old school DB and jammed him into the chest, that would have been great. But you know what? He actually grabbed instead of jamming. So
are you cool with Bradbury coming out after and admitting that he held them?
I didn't like that move either. I didn't like that move either. It's whoever does that. Whoever does that. I've never seen a DB come out and back up a ref on a very questionable call, especially after the Super Bowl. I thought it was
the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I thought it was super weird. And then, I got to give props to Juju with his burn on sending him the Valentine.
He didn't create that. I seen that the day before. There was a bunch of NFL memes that were created.
He just took it?
He shared it, I guess. And then
props to you for sharing
controversy.
It. Props to you, Juju, but that's definitely Juju Smith's style.
Is he the greatest TikToker in the NFL in history?
Yeah, I mean, I can't even think of another guy that's actually TikToking other than Juju right now. I'm sure there's plenty, but he's the only one that I know. He was kind of on it when it wasn't even popular. But the game itself, I agree with you. Over 750 total yards of offense. There was 3 ties, 4 lead changes, critical turnovers, the whole 9 yards. I mean, we got it all except for that last chance to see Jalen with the ball. Yeah. And instead, what do we get? We probably got the worst Hail Mary attempt of all time. That was terrible. It's come on. You played such a great game, and then that's your Hail Mary attempt.
It looked like an elderly person trying to throw a brick, where it's this is going to go 60 yards. Oh, it went 12 feet. My bad. But you got to give credit where credit's due. And, Mahommes doesn't have the yardage stats that we're accustomed to seeing with how he performs, but very efficient, 21 and 27, 0 turnovers from that offense. The team had a 6 yards per carry throughout the whole game. Isaiah Pacheco, your unsung hero.
Rutgers, baby, stand up.
He's going to be a phenomenal player, it looks like.
He is.
Jerick McKinnon had, I think, 34 yards, but Patrick Mahommes using his legs with the severely injured high ankle sprain.
Which he got sprained again. It wasn't a fake. You saw the replay. He definitely got rolled.
Sure?
I don't know. He got rolled a little bit.
Are we sure he's not playing up to the crowd and then limping and then sprinting and then whatever?
Yeah.
But that 26-yarder, it was third down. If you go back to that fourth quarter, third down, 26-yard scamper up the middle of the field to get him into field goal range, which inevitably led to that holding penalty, the game-winning kick. So that was all done by the legs of Patrick Mahommes. So he, as the all-around player, is the reason. It's exactly what we said. I think our analysis was spot on. Eagles are probably a better team. Eagles have an offensive line that's going to be dominant. They did that. Jalen Hurts had the passing game going. They did that. Neither defense really showed up, but we said the only X factor could be if Patrick Mahommes if he becomes the greatest player on the field, and he essentially did that, not through the air, but through whatever means necessary to get a victory, and he did that.
At this point, I think that's classic Mahomes, right?
Right.
You think about all Mahomes' big wins, he's always had that random 20-yard scamper, and it's always right up the middle, right? Because you always forget about a quarterback running straight up the middle, and you probably gave him that 10 times that game, and that was the first time he chose to take it.
Yeah.
Like I think the genius athlete quarterbacks like him, they don't scramble every time it's there. They scramble when they need it to be, and they don't do it on those other times that it's there so that you keep leaving it there. You know, it's like the mouse seeing the cheese 10 times and waiting for the trap to snap and then walking up and getting the cheese. You know, so it's something along those lines. And
here, we're a week and a half removed from it. What is your standing memory of the Super Bowl? Is it the penalty? Is it the quarterback play? What's like the one thing that stands? Is it Rihanna in halftime?
So the Rihanna halftime, it was cool. I'm not going to knock Rihanna, but the coolest thing about the halftime show was the stage.
Yeah,
the stage was legit.
Wow.
The stage was bitching. Great job on setting up the stage. I saw that there was 2 cables attached to each point too. It was nice and safe. You know, you see, especially
for
you notice,
Rihanna. I don't know if all the
pregnant Rihanna. You know, what I'm saying exactly the side ones. I'm not sure.
Here, we're gonna derail this. How did that play out at your Super Bowl party? Who mentioned, is Rihanna pregnant?
I want to say it might have been Kayla, who is my brother-in-law's girlfriend, or it might have been my wife. I can't really remember,
Okay,
but
good.
it was kind of like
It was
noticed.
a female though, right?
I'm pretty sure it was a female.
So at our party, a male mentioned, I think she's pregnant, and got obliterated by the females. We have a handful of new moms that are like, you guys are so disrespectful. She's like post mother weight of the first baby.
Yep.
And then, like, the conversation as she keeps performing, like, no, I'm pretty sure she's pregnant,
Yeah,
guys.
she's definitely pregnant.
So, obviously, she was, so it's all fair game now. But I asked a lot of people that, and a lot of people have the same experience as me of everyone, like, is she? And then it's kind
nobody
of
wants
like,
to really say it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think it was definitely, like, some questioning amongst the group, and then they show a couple shots where it's like,
she's showing it off.
She's straight
like,
up pregnant.
guys,
Yeah, she's straight up pregnant. And they showed her, and, like, then the next day they showed all, like, the pregame hype and stuff, and she was always wearing, like, baggy sweaters and stuff like that, and, like, they make it seem like comments like it's going to be a jam-packed show or something like that. I don't know. But of course it's going to be a jam-packed show. It's Super Bowl.
How about the prop, will anyone join Rihanna on stage? And everyone was saying yes, like Drake or maybe Kanye would come out, or Jay-Z even. No other artist did, but does the baby, the bun in the oven, does that count as someone accompanying her on stage?
That's where all these props are left open to speculation. Like our parlay for the Super Bowl, we did pretty good. We actually did pretty good on it.
Yep.
The one that I'm questioning, though, is like I timed the anthem at home, and I literally timed it to 2 minutes .9, and it was 2:01 on our show when we were going over it.
Yeah.
I'm like, man.
I seen it on both sides where someone had it at 1:59, someone had it at 2:01. It was all right around that area.
So I don't know who's running the stopwatch at MGM, but you better have been on the right side for the house. I'm sure you were.
For sure.
But that's the way that it goes. But yeah, my standing moment is probably, like I said, Jalen Hurts fumbling that ball. That was like my, oh my God. I got mad when the ref threw the flag, just like any normal football fan probably would, especially if you don't have any skin in the game like me. But the moment when I was actually engaged in the game, at that point when they're down there, I already have a strong feeling like, oh man, the Chiefs are going to pull this out. But that moment when Jalen Hurts just let the ball slip out of his hands, I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And
it was an instant scoop and score, just like that.
Like as soon as the ball hit the ground, he caught it first hop, and you knew nobody was catching him.
Eagles were up at 10 at that point, so they could have really stretched that lead, but that got the Chiefs right back in it.
Got the Chiefs right back in it. Then the Eagles got to extend it back to 10 before halftime, and I felt pretty good. And I even think they got the first field goal in the second half, and they were up.
No, Mahommes, remember, he hobbled off right before half, and then he came back in the second half and scored the first touchdown to cut it to 3.
Yeah.
And then it was back and forth. That whole second half was
but
great.
Elliott got that field goal with 0 left on the clock, which hit our will anybody score in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
The scoop and score hit us on our something else is going to happen.
Yep.
Our 2-point conversion for Jalen Hurts for the octopus. So I mean, really, the only one that was left hanging is that national anthem.
We're counting it. We're counting it.
We're
giving you
so we're
credit for
counting it. So I'm hoping that you played our parlay and you hit some cash with us, or at least hit some squares. But regardless, you had to enjoy the game, no matter who you are out there.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic Super Bowl. But now, we kind of talked about it before the AFC and NFC championships, but I want to talk about it now. Here he is, Mahomes, the only man with 2 Super Bowl championships. Jeremy Schiffman, you take it first. Is Patrick Mahomes now the hands down, no doubt about it, can't even make an argument, best quarterback in the NFL?
He is the heavyweight champ of the NFL right now. And we've kind of already known this, but now he has every accolade to back him up. He's been in the league for 5 years now. His first year as a starter, a loss in overtime of the AFC Championship, mainly because his defensive lineman jumped off sides. Second year, Super Bowl. Third year, gets to the Super Bowl. Offensive line is completely decimated, gets beat by the Bucs. Fourth year, an overtime loss in the AFC Championship that he should have still won and gone to another Super Bowl. And then this year, another Super Bowl championship. So that's 2 Super Bowl championships in 5 years. He's been in it. He's never had to play a road game in his career. The crazy stat is
insane.
Travis Kelce hasn't played a road game in the postseason. I should have mentioned that, obviously, for Mahomes. Postseason, never played a road game in his career. Travis Kelce has only played a road game in 2015 of his NFL career on the road.
With Alex Smith.
Yeah, with Alex Smith, and they probably lost because that's what Alex Smith did in the playoffs. But Mahomes is by far the heavyweight champ. We're all fully aware of this. He is really on that Tom Brady trajectory right now. You could only put him. You could put, like, the Joe Montanas of the world where, like...
Is he, though? How old is Patrick Mahomes right now?
27?
27.
But
And
they redshirted him his first year.
I think Brady had, what, 3 at 27?
Well, Brady played 20 years. Let's say Mahomes plays 15 to 17 to 18 years.
No way.
Why no way?
Because he does too much scrambling. He's already hobbling around all the time. There's no way he plays that long.
Brady had his knee obliterated and still came back.
Brady's a maniac. I think Mahomes is here for a short era dominance, and he's going to be happy with that.
You know what my all-time record that will never be broken. I don't think Mahomes is going to get 7 Super Bowls, but can he get 4? Can he get 5, mind you?
There's the key number.
Yeah.
Can he get 5? Can he become that second guy with more than 4?
I say yes. Automatically, I say yes. I think the culture is what it is. Like, he lost Tyreek Hill, and what did he replace him with? A handful of average wide receivers. That's all he needs around him. He is like the ultimate spreader of wealth, where you give me 3 different running backs, from Clyde Edwards-Helaire to Isaiah Pacheco to what Jerick McKinnon did. And then it's all predicated around what Travis Kelce is able to do and move that defense. Like, as long as those two are together, like, obviously, eventually you're going to have to replace Travis Kelce. But as long as that guy is behind center and you have a quality old line in front of him, they're going to be in AFC championships. They're going to be battling it out with your guy, Joe Burrow, Icy Joe, whatever nickname we're going to have for him next year.
And he's going to beat Joey that many times?
I mean, it's going to go back and forth. Like, Josh Allen is now in that next tier. And then we're not even mentioning Justin Herbert, who is a great player that is still playing for the Chargers. So that could always be a demerit for his career. But
what about El Freaky, Lamar Jackson, too? He signs that franchise tag.
Yeah,
he's coming back, baby.
He's not going to be happy under the franchise tag. Any injuries that he might get, either big or small, he's going to sit out.
There's going to be 40 million reasons why he'll be happy under that franchise tag.
Here's a crazy stat for you. So this is Mahomes' 11th playoff win. He passes the great Joe Flacco, who had 10 playoff
Give
wins.
me a break.
But here's even the crazier one. Montana's second with 2. We all know Brady has the most all time. How many postseason wins does Tom Brady have?
How many postseason wins does Tom Brady have?
If Montana is second with 16. So that's my point. He's 5 away from Montana. I think he'll eclipse that in terms of postseason wins. Where's Brady at, though? How far away is that stick?
It's got to be low 30s, so I'm saying 33.
You're in the ballpark. 35.
Okay.
Here's the crazy thing of franchises with the most wins in the postseason all time. The Cowboys, 49ers, Steelers, and Packers all are tied with 36 wins. So Brady's 1 behind 4 of the most synonymous and historic franchises in NFL history. And then the Pats have 37 total.
I was going to say, the Pats got to be above them then.
So, yeah, they are. They're at 37. Those other 4 great teams that have all have what? 5 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowls, 5 Super... Yeah, all of them. The Steelers have 6. Okay. But Super Bowls across the board, all with 36 wins. And then here's Tom Brady as an individual, 35 wins.
And that's basically all the Pats except for the Drew Bledsoe days and the, I don't know who played quarterback against the Bears in that one Super Bowl too.
They did go to that one in 85.
So those are crazy stats, and I'm not going to sit here and try to argue that Mahomes isn't the best hands-down quarterback in the league right now.
Who's 2? That's the better question. Who's 2 right now in the league?
If I had to guess right now, I'm sticking with my boy Joe Burrow, because basically what I was going to do for my segment here with Mahomes, he's got 2 Super Bowls. He's the only guy in the league with that. You mentioned that going into the Super Bowl that he could become that person now that Brady said he's hanging up his cleats again. And then you think about it, all the other quarterbacks are aging until you get to Joe Burrow or Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson win a Super Bowl, then they can contend with him. But until they win a Super Bowl, they can't contend with him. But I will say this right now, if Joe Burrow wins next year's Super Bowl and he goes through Pat Mahomes to do it, I'm putting him on top.
Okay.
That's my guy.
It's a bold call right there.
I'm just telling you. And one thing that Mahomes should get some respect for is he knocked off the Nostradamus of Twitter, too, and he ruined his little streak that he had. Did you see the post of the 10 Super Bowl predictions? And this guy was on, like, number 5? Yeah, so he was on, like, he was about to get his 5th one right, and it was the Eagles. And then, like, next year, I think was the Chiefs. Then the Jaguars.
Okay, I did see that.
Then the Jaguars all random, which you can see happening
I thought
now.
the Bengals over the Cowboys or something like that.
So it was. He was just naming Super Bowl winners.
Okay.
So we're gonna do a press coverage edition of that next episode. We're gonna lay out our best scripts for the next 10 years, and we'll see how that ages. But right now, I want to know how next year is going to age. Who has the better chance for next year's Super Bowl out of the two teams that were in the Super Bowl? I'm going to take first swing at this. I'm going to go with the Eagles, okay? They got a lot of possible free agents, right? So it makes me a little nervous just to name a few. Fletcher Cox, Robert Quinn, Brandon Graham, Jason Hargrave, Jason Kelsey, my man, James Bradbury. I don't know if you're going to be on a roster next year, James. I hope you are because he had a great year. Andre Dillard, who was a big part of that team, and Ndamukong Suh, who they signed, and was all up in all kinds of backfields as soon as they signed him because the guy's just a stud. Zach Pascal, who was an important like 4th receiver out there when they went in big sets, and then you got all the running backs. You got Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, and then another safety standout, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
That's a lot of players,
a lot of free agents, but. Let me listen to this. They also are in the top 7 of salary cap going into the free agency. So they'll weigh
2 first-rounders.
And yes, exactly. And they'll weigh their options, right? Jalen Hurts is up for a contract extension. I say just pay him now.
Yeah.
Pay him now. You have to pay him top dollar.
It's going to get inflated.
Pay him now before Lamar Jackson's deal comes out, before Joe Burrow's deal comes out, before Justin Herbert's deal comes out. I mean, pay him now.
Yeah.
Pay him this week. Like, as I post this show up on our YouTube channel that you should be subscribed to, pay him before I even do that. All right? That's what needs to happen. Pay Jalen Hurts his money right now. You know he's worth it. So start with the free agency of signing Jalen Hurts. Then worry about the court. Call Jason Kelsey. Say, hey, man, come back. Screw your brother. Don't let him be the last guy to beat him. I think you could talk Jason Kelsey into coming back, which will be huge. Then the rest of that offensive line, all still intact. So you're good to go right now.
Yeah.
You go right back into next year with the best offensive line again, and you got enough pieces on defense already in place with Darius Slay and Hassan Reddick still under a good team-friendly contract. And then you just figure out, do you want to pay Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? Do you want to use some of these draft picks? Because they don't have a lot of draft picks, but they have 4 in the top 100. Yeah. You can do a lot of damage when you're a good team and you add 4 top 100 prospects correctly. And the Eagles have proved that they know how to draft correctly, especially in those first and second rounds. They haven't missed too many. So I think that's enough for them to reload and come after it. Then, who's their competition in the NFC? God forbid if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, who will stop the Eagles? The Cowboys are in shambles. I don't want to even hear about the Cowboys.
Cowboys are there.
Yeah, Danny Dimes
Niners
and
are still a
Saquon
good
Barkley.
team.
The Niners, who's going to be their quarterback?
We'll find out who's healthy when they actually play.
Who's going to be their quarterback? I don't want to hear about the Niners. There's always
Rams
a day late, dollar
on a
short.
revamped season.
Rams with Baker Mayfield leading the way? No way. Get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. I'm just saying,
much yet.
There's no viable option in the NFC to say they're going to dethrone the Eagles when they bring back the likes of Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, their tight ends. All those guys I didn't even mention. Like, I named a lot of free agents, but none of those guys.
Yeah.
So they're ready to go. They're in the more favorable conference. Pat Mahomes, everybody's going to be gunning for him, including Joe Shiesty, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. My boy Tua says his brain is ready to rock and roll, and he's going to be on point. I think my Dolphins are going to be legit contenders. And then when you talk about the Jets, if they get the likes of Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, AFC is going to be freaking tough, man. It's going to be like the Western Conference of the NBA. So I'm going Eagles.
Fair enough. I'm going with any team that has Patrick Mahomes on it. Like that's the easiest answer to give me a break. So that's my first stance. But honestly, we don't know who's going to win the Super Bowl yet next year because look at the last handful of champs. And I'm going to include Philly on this. Like, Philly was a good team. 7th seed last year, got knocked out in the wild card round. They added a superstar wide receiver, and they developed Devontae Smith into great players alongside A.J. Brown. So Philly really boosted up. But you go back to last year, Rams did not have Matt Stafford at this time in late February, and that's what led them to the Super Bowl. We go back to the previous year. Bucks did not have Tom Brady around this time 2 years ago, which led them to that Super Bowl. So I think the offseason now in the NFL really is so much more important than it was in years past. Like, whatever trades or free agency and or draft picks that change your roster. We could see a team like the Chargers I'll throw out there. If things fall right, like why can't they win it? Why can't the Bengals win it? But if we're looking at just these two teams in the Super Bowl, I do think they're probably still the top 1 to 2 seeds in their conference. Give me the team that has Patrick Mahommes. I've been consistent with this thought and argument all year long, and I will be consistent throughout his career because he has shown up and he has showed us what it is all about to be a successful quarterback in the NFL.
If there's a rematch next year, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, you're going to ride with Patrick Mahomes?
I mean, I rode with Jalen Hurts in this past one. I picked the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, so I was wrong in that regard. But I give myself a little loophole, a little wiggle room of, but if Patrick Mahomes shows up and is dominant and is the best player on the field, he's a heavyweight champ. So until you beat him, he's still the champ.
We'll see next year at this yellow table if that comes true, and I think there's a good chance. That'd be fun to see a direct rematch in the Super Bowl. That would be pretty cool. But there's a lot of things moving on. One thing I didn't mention about the Eagles and this revamped team that they're going to have next year with whatever pieces it's going to be, they're going to have a new offensive coordinator and a new defense coordinator because following the trend of the NFL like they do, it's my boy Jude Renee, shout out to Jude. He always used to say it's a league of parodies, and it is most definitely a league of parodies. Time after time after time, a team wins a Super Bowl and they pillage the coaching staff. Does it ever work? I don't know. But this next topic, we're going to try our best to figure it out. Jeremy, out of the coaching carousel that we've seen so far, which NFL team has made the best hire so far this offseason?
I mean, to me, it's obvious, and I hope you have a different answer, but I would see why you would have the same answer. It's got to be Sean Payton going to Denver. Here's why. Sean Payton, we've seen over the years, probably the last 2 decades, when a hot coach leaves his coaching seat, like to his own decision, like I'm just going to step away from my health, for my family, etc. That guy's always such a hot commodity. Think back to Bill Cowher, think back to John Gruden for like 2 decades, and now like Sean Payton was sitting in that for the last year and a half, 2 years. Wherever he went, that team is going to get a lot better. On top of the Denver Broncos being so tied to Russell Wilson and so screwed if this doesn't work out. They
need some.
They traded a first-round pick, and that first-round pick's a top 5 pick now that Seattle has, and Russell Wilson has not looked good, obviously, and he's on the books for at least 2 more years. At
Big
the
time
very
on the
least,
books.
At the very least. If not, it's going to cost him $200 million. So now that Sean Payton gets to step in and be the face of the franchise, be the voice of the franchise, and hopefully it's not Russell Wilson's show, and he's got to, like, he didn't accept this job unless he still thinks like, all right, there's still work here. Russell Wilson can still be a great player, and we could figure it out because it needs to work for Denver with Russell Wilson. If it doesn't, they set themselves back an entire decade with what they gave up. So I really like the Sean Payton hire in Denver because wide receivers, they're still good. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. Maybe Judy's the number one. Judy's probably the number one. Running back, you didn't have Javonte Williams the entire year, and he's one of these young rookie-type running backs that once he gets full-time opportunities, he's a top 10 running back in fantasy at least. So I'm curious to see what they look like fully healthy. That defense has been good. They've just had an inept offense for the last handful of seasons, and Sean Payton is the offensive guru. Let's see what he could do with Russ.
He is supposed to be the quarterback whisperer. I got a couple problems with Sean Payton being the best hire. To me, I think it's not anything really to do with Sean Payton, but the fact that the Broncos gave up too much for Sean Payton. You mentioned how much they already gave up for Russell Wilson. They gave up even more, right? So they're
all in.
All in. They gave up first round and second round picks just for a coach. So instead of getting players to help a roster that I think needs a lot of help, like you said, they got good wide receivers. Do they? What has Cortland Sutton done? What has Jerry Jeudy done? I think he scored his first touchdown this year, like barely after being in the league. I mean, he was just on this long run of Alabama wide receivers getting drafted, and they have not all been home runs, and he is one that has been a huge miss. Cortland Sutton, I'm not sold on that guy. They got rid of Noah Fant, who is a great tight end that Russell Wilson would have loved having this year. The guy looks like he's in shambles. The O-line is far from good. So how are you going to fix all that when you gave up your best way to fix it with that those draft picks that you gave away for Sean Payton, just a coach who ain't going to be out there blocking no defensive end last time I checked. And last time I checked, the AFC West has quite a few goons on them bookends. Yeah. So I got a lot more. I got to see a lot more before I think Sean Payton's going to fix the Denver Broncos. What I do think is DeMeco Ryans to the Houston Texans is an excellent hire, right? So he's a franchise star with a phenomenal track record as a player and the same as a coach. He's a player's coach. He's young. He's coming in. He hired Bobby Slowick, another 34-year-old who's a perennial coach. That's all he is. So he's a player's guy. He's like one of these football dweebs like Mike McDaniels. I saw like the most home run meme ever in my life. It was a picture of Mike McDaniels walking through the Dolphins practice and he's dancing to Lil Wayne. And it said Mike McDaniels is coaching the Dolphins like his dad left town for 2 weeks and he's letting him run the business or the company or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, that's so on point. But he's doing a good job.
Yeah.
Right? It's their generation. It's finally, like before that was never happening in the NFL because coaches didn't get their start when they were 20-something years old. Yeah. So it's a new thing that's happening. I think it's a good move for the Texans. Bobby Slowick hasn't had a number one quarterback for the longest time, so now they get to go out and say, hey, Bobby, hopefully they go to him and say, which one of these young quarterbacks do you want? Who knows? We touched on it before. Maybe even he slides Justin Fields down to Houston Texans for that number 2 pick. Nah. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Leave Justin in Chicago.
There's a few options. We already went over that debate. We won't necessarily get into it now, but if they don't, they get their pick from, because obviously if Justin Fields is staying in Chicago, they get their pick of Bryce Young. They get their pick of Will Levis. They get their pick of C.J. Stroud. I mean, a lot of studs. Will Levis, please. No, don't even go there, Texans. I would beg you not to,
Another
but I read
Zach
an article.
Wilson type of play.
I read an article that Bobby Slowick loves strong arms and blah, blah, blah. It's like, look at the quarterbacks in San Francisco. None of those guys have a strong arm, so don't do it, Bobby.
I do like the DeMeco Ryans. I think they signed him to a 6-year deal. Like, that's commitment.
Yep.
He's from there. His wife is from there. He played there. He was an all-pro there. So it does have that wholesome coming home feeling. And the fact that they have the number 2 pick, knowing that they're probably not going to be great this upcoming year, he has years to build it. Going, let's just say 3-16 or 3-14 or 4-13 this upcoming year is not going to hurt him because they know it's a progression. Like, he has some years to get that team righted, so I can't argue at all with that pick.
And I think he'll right the ship of the defense first, even if it's a bad year. There's plenty of good defenses that have bad years on the records. So I'm hoping that they get a quarterback, let Bobby work his way through some struggles where they're losing games, but the defense is playing good. I hope DeMeco comes in and makes an instant impact. They got a lot of cap room, so make something happen, DeMeco. Good job, Texans, on making the head coaching world a little more diversified. Even though you had to fire my boy Lovie Smith really for no reason either. So it's like
because he scored that final touchdown.
It's still just as diversified as it was, but solid move, Texans, on hiring DeMeco Ryans. I think he's a class act. I think he's going to be a great coach for you guys. He's got Mike Tomlin vibes. I think it's going to be a real move where he's just going to come in, be classy, be a winner, and he's going to do big things. But like you said, it's a building process. One building process I want to talk about real quick is one that The Rock Johnson is doing. Did you take a look at any XFL games over the weekend? I'm curious.
Yeah, I had a good weekend, actually. I went to Catalina Island for the first time.
Yes. Oh, for the first time?
Yeah, first time ever. Have you been?
Yeah, I've been. Catalina Island's fucking awesome, dude.
Avalon City, like that little town city, whatever they're calling it. Great vibes. Jumping around from a couple different bars and eateries, and they had the games on.
Did you get your wiki whacked at Larry's or whatever it is?
Larry Luau's? I did go there. Yes, sir. That was the first stop right when we got off the ship.
I went there on my very first Father's Day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
all right.
It was cool.
Well, we could definitely discuss that. But yes, I did catch a handful of different highlights. I liked how they played on Sunday as well. So I'm all in with the XFL for the third time.
Honestly, I think this is the best rendition. Great job, Rock, by getting ESPN all in. Like, the announcers were legit. The production was legit. Even the little bit of fans were rowdy. Did you see the lemons getting thrown on the field by the DC Defenders?
I did not. But
so the DC Defender fans started chucking lemons onto the field because security, they had one of those massive beer cup snakes going, and it was like literally 40 rows long, and they stole it from them, saying it was getting dangerous or whatever. So they had all these lemons somehow. I don't know how you had all the lemons, but they just started chucking lemons onto the field and they had to pull them off. But with that being said, I seen Josh Gordon score a touchdown for the first time in a long time. Ben DiNucci was looking good out there, even though the Sea Dragons lost. There was 3 pick sixes that led to 2 epic comebacks. One of them happened in like a minute and 45 where you saw a 3-point conversion. That's right, a 3-point conversion.
From the 10-yard line. I like that idea.
I like that idea too. And then they hit the 4th and 15 instead of the onside kick, and they went down and threw the game-winning touchdown to who else but XFL legend Austin Proehl, the son of NFL legend Ricky Proehl. I don't know if you remember Ricky Proehl.
I do. He scored the game-winning touchdown in the NFC Championship to send the Rams to the Super Bowl in 1999.
Yeah, he did. It was a sick, one-handed,
against
tough
the Bucs.
contested grab against a gnarly Bucs defense that ended up winning a Super Bowl a couple years later.
Yep.
So, I mean, I love Ricky Proehl, and that was just cool to see those names out there. I used to watch Austin Proehl at UNC, and I knew a lot of those guys out there playing football from college and stuff.
Cool.
So I'm all in on the XFL. I'm watching.
I definitely think it's going to work this time. I think The Rock and his business partner, former wife, Danny Garcia, they understand the storyline aspect of what we like in sports. They're doing a 10-part documentary called Player 54, meaning there's a 53-man roster in the NFL. These are all the 54th man, guys that did not make the roster in the
I like
NFL.
the name of that.
Player 54. So it's going in depth of all of their different journeys, and you can't help but get a little emotional when you see the guy that's been turned away time and time again, last chance type of opportunity here, and when they get the call for the draft of the XFL and then watching them break down and crying, knowing I have one more opportunity to really
another chance,
play the sport that I've loved since my childhood and make maybe a little bit of money. Not going to be millions of the NFL, but I don't have to put food on your table for your family. That's the coolness about it. A lot of the rules that they're trying to implement, I guarantee the NFL is already scoping out, and they're going to try to steal. The other XFL, the Vince McMahon version, was not supported by the NFL. This one is in.
Well, that one was too crazy. That XFL one was crazy with He Hate Me and all those guys. I thought it was cool wearing the nicknames, but
as a kid thinking they're going to turn football into extreme football. That makes sense.
Yes, let's
it's already
go.
Extreme as it gets. What are we talking about
Harder
here?
hits, skimpier cheerleader outfits, and Vince McMahon yelling into microphones.
It's XFL. But that was not in cahoots with the NFL. This one is. This is turning into a NBA G League, MLB minor league, where they want to see certain rules that they could try to implement through the XFL, see how it works, and then bring it to the actual game. And I think both of the things you mentioned, a 3-point conversion from the 10-yard line as opposed to a extra point field goal or the 2-point conversion, that's pretty interesting and cool.
I like it.
And then if we're trying to eliminate kickoffs, how do you do an onside kick? A 4th and 15, if you convert that, boom, you get the ball and go from there. Why not? So I'm all in. I think the big names are helping it. A couple of guys you mentioned, watching Josh Gordon score, A.J. McCarron going out there. We all remember him from Alabama.
He was the part of that comeback with the 3-point conversion.
Right. So I'm hopeful that certain players don't look down on them I'm going to be an XFL player. And even if you're not playing, Vic Beasley was a sack leader 6 years ago in the NFL. Yeah. So he's out there playing. So that's fun to see. I think it works, and especially in this time where we're still getting that little itch from the NFL and the Super Bowl, post-Super Bowl. We get football on Saturdays and Sundays. Why not?
I like it. We even get it on Thursday this weekend, so if you're itching for some Thursday night football, Ben DiNucci, Josh Gordon, they're on Thursday night football, FXX or FXM, whatever, the FX station. Check it out. I mean, I highly enjoyed myself watching a little XFL action this weekend. Like you said, it's scratching my itch, but you know what's going to scratch it even better?
How many weeks are you away from throwing a parlay together for the XFL?
Oh, I already did it. I already did it. And you know what? What burned me?
Did we hit?
I hit every single one except for that Brahma's comeback. So I was
Story
3 for 4.
of your life.
I was 3 for 4, and it was the 3-point conversion, the 4th and 15. I'm watching it, and I didn't even know the rules yet, and they start going for all these things.
What the
and
hell
I'm
is happening?
What's happening here? I like it, but it's about to blow my parlay.
Right.
So I mean, it was great. I love it. XFL is a lot of fun. They're even on Prize Picks and all that stuff, so you can do a lot of fun player props and stuff with it too. XFL, good job, Rock. You're off to a hot start. Stick with it this time. Don't give up on it like the other investors
did. The guy gets
did.
business, it seems. He understands.
He'll be all right. But you know what? We'll be all right also because the NBA only has 22 games left, and we are coming out of the All-Star games hot this Thursday night, kicking off with a bunch of key matchups. Lakers-Warriors. LeBron said these are the most important regular season games of his career. We talked about it. We talked about it with the jersey hanging and stuff like that. He needs to make the playoffs, and he knows it. He's coming in hot. I like the Lakers' chances, but I want to know, Jeremy, in your opinion, now after this trade deadline that the Lakers were definitely a part of, which team has helped themselves the most in regards to their chance for a championship this season?
Who's the best player that got traded?
No, Kevin Durant.
Bingo. Simple question, simple answer. The Phoenix Suns, they've enhanced their chances to win the championship by the most. This is very rare. This does not happen often at all, to where Kevin Durant's a top 15 all-time player at the very worst.
I was gonna say that might be selling him short, man.
He's inching in that top 10 type of conversation. We'll see how his career ends, but top 15 all-time player. There's only a handful of those top 15 players that have ever been traded. Shaq being one in the offseason. Wilt Chamberlain happening twice, but that was more for his own, like, trying to move around, all in the offseason. A player of his caliber in the history of the NBA has never been traded at the deadline like this. And the fact that if you're questioning, well, how big was it or how little was it? This took over Super Bowl week. It happened to the team that was hosting the Super Bowl, Phoenix Suns, down there in Arizona where the Super Bowl was. Everyone was talking about Kevin Durant and the NBA trade deadline. NBA strategically planted their trade deadline Super Bowl week just in case something like this were to happen. The NBA and NFL go back and forth with these little things of how they schedule their calendars. Point being, the Suns with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, obviously, those two scorers on the perimeter, like, no matter what, if those guys get hot, that's pretty great. They don't have depth. They don't have everything else that you need for a championship team, but if you throw Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton with those two, like, that is a formidable starting five, finishing five. That's good enough. That's good enough to win the championship. That's the biggest move. Like, I love what the Lakers did. If you really look at it in totality, only having to give up one pick, moving Russell Westbrook out, which I've been begging for weeks, if not years now.
Who's now on the Clippers.
Yeah, let him be. I'm glad he went to the Clippers. I cannot wait.
Could you imagine Clippers, Lakers in the playoffs? I need that in my life, NBA.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
If only they will play Russell Westbrook to close out that unit. I would love
they won't.
For him to just, he is going to, because he needs the ball in his hands. So does Kawhi, so does Paul George. So that's going to implode them internally. I don't know how much playing time he's going to get.
Russ is going to be a bench guy. I think the Clippers will be smart. You turn Russell into his own one-man, 10-minute team off the bench. When you want to rest, seriously.
Listen to yourself.
When you want to rest, seriously, it's going to be best for Russell and everybody.
10 minutes.
So rest Kawhi and George for 10 minutes a game, and those other 10 minutes, you're letting Russell run with the second group, and they just do their thing.
And he'll turn a 5-point lead into a 14-point deficit like that for your team. But with the Lakers getting back D'Angelo Russell expiring contract, he fits more with LeBron and AD than what Russ did. Jared Vanderbilt, great defensive player, big man that can get around. And then Malik Beasley, a scorer, a three. He hasn't really clicked yet with the Lakers, but I like adding that. And then you throw in Mo Bamba. Like, they added pieces that are helpful.
Mo Bamba looks good, too.
Yeah, he'll defend the rim. He'll eventually knock down some threes and get into a rhythm, but we've only seen them all together for one game, and it was kind of a blowout of New Orleans. They beat them by 15-20. We haven't seen many Laker blowouts this year, so that was good to see going into the All-Star break. I'm excited for these final 23 games, the most important games, as you mentioned, of LeBron's career. I can't wait to see them, but as a whole, NBA trade deadline was ridiculous. 39 second-round picks were traded. And guess how many players have ever been good from the second round? Like a handful.
Yeah, very few handful.
The currency of the NBA and how they form these transactions, it's kind of comical. I don't know if they're trolling us as the fans by, like, trading X player for 5 second-round picks, but I kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the NBA trade deadline. To me, it's undefeated because it has more impact than the MLB trade deadline. MLB trade deadline, you always see a big name move to, but it's never as crazy as the NBA, right? I like Kyrie going to Dallas, okay? Hear me out.
Yeah.
Right? Finally, Luka's got a legit running mate, right? Everybody thought, when they got 3-6 Latvia with Kristaps Porzingis that was going to be the running mate that he needed. But Kristaps has always just been a flashy player. He never looked like the real deal to me. Kyrie Irving, let's be real. That guy is the real deal. If he had a straight head on his shoulders, that guy would be top 15. I mean, his ball handling, he's the best ball handler in the league. No one can take that away from him.
At the rim.
And finisher at the rim. I mean, the guy is electric. He's the reason that LeBron got that Cleveland championship. Let's be real. Obviously, LeBron put in his work too. It was a team win, but Kyrie came up clutch with that big 3-point shot, and it was like answering the Warriors. So Kyrie, he's going to get it done in the postseason, and now you finally have another consistent scoring threat, so you could put Luka on the bench for a little bit, right? So from when he entered the league, first year, 33.6 minutes per game. 2021, 34.3. 2022, 35.4. This year, 36.5 minutes per game. The guy is always on the court. He is top 5. Only person ahead of him, one of them, is Kyrie Irving. So Kyrie also plays these kind of minutes. So you can easily have one of those guys on the court all game long now. So you have a legitimate top scorer in the NBA legit top 5 scorer in the NBA on the court at all time if you're the Dallas Mavericks, and they got enough pieces around them. I mean, really, they only had to give up Spencer Dinwiddie. You turned Spencer Dinwiddie into Kyrie Irving, all right? So
I think Tim Hardaway Jr. was in that trade too, so another good piece, but yeah, I get it. He's a role player.
To me, the better piece was Dorian Finney-Thompson.
Oh, that's what it was. Dorian
Finney-Thompson.
Smith.
Yeah, Finney-Smith.
That's who it was.
He got traded with Spencer Dinwiddie and pick.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's some nice moves for the Nets. Honestly, the Nets kind of came up with a nice little cachet out of trading the two, but they also are left with no superstar.
Well, they got Ben Simmons.
And thank God.
I stand by your statement.
Thank God. But I said I like the Mavericks.
Yeah.
I love what the Suns got at the trade deadline. I can't argue. I think the Mavericks made a really nice move, but I mean, the Suns are getting KD. I mean, let's be real. I think he's top 10. I think he doesn't even really need to do too much. Yeah, top 10 all time. Top 10 greatest talented players. Now,
top 10 all time is solidified.
Not greatest careers. Hear me out. Not greatest careers. Top 10 greatest players of all time as far as skill level.
I mean,
as far as skill level,
are we putting Kyrie into this then? Because
Kyrie,
skill-wise,
drop him in the 90s, drop him in the 70s, drop him in the 30s. KD is getting buckets.
You can't drop.
KD is getting buckets.
Of course, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I look at it as it's a mixture of both. Your greatness, meaning your peak, when you could do when you're at your height of your superpowers, how did that influence the outcomes of seasons? Jordan, obviously 6-0. We're all very familiar with that. I think the top 10 is solidified, and it's hard to knock on that door.
I think KD's peak, he could, A, still be in it if he just stays healthy, but B, I think his peak was when he won those back-to-back finals MVPs.
Do you have him over Shaq all time? Because Shaq's number 10 on the list.
Career or talent?
Combine the both.
Oh, combine the both? I got to go KD. I'm going KD over Shaq. Okay. But we can get into this. We can do this. We got plenty of time to talk about NBA coming up.
A little power ranking down the road at some point.
We can get into that. We can get into that for sure. But let's stick to the trade deadline. Getting KD is huge. All right, KD, those kind of guys just don't move, like you said. They don't move. And then on top of it, they still have 22 games to get chemistry. And if there's ever a scientist that can cook up the chemistry quick enough, it's the point god in Chris Paul. CP3 will have them boys ready to play, right? What'd they give up? They gave up Mikal Bridges, who dropped like 40-something points in his first game for the Nets. So shout out to you, Mikal. Yeah. He's been kicked around the league too much. When the Sixers drafted him, I was stoked because he's a Villanova kid. He's a Philly boy. But regardless, he's going to do his thing. Cam Johnson is good. Dario Saric, another Philly outcast. Yeah. He's good. I like him. He's a scrappy European player. But KD, I mean, come on. Then on top of it, since then, they signed TJ Warren and Terrence Ross. Those are easily at least 75% of the talent they gave up getting back in TJ Warren. If you remember TJ Warren in the bubble, that dude was on fire in the bubble. He showed what he can do, and he showed that a few times for the Nets this year, too. So now you look at it, you got CP3, Devin Booker, KD, DeAndre Ayton, and then you throw in Damian Lee, who's shooting 44% from three, and he likes to play defense, and you still got Cam Payne, Landry Shamet, and Terrence Ross coming off the bench for speed.
Don't give me Cam Payne. I can't stand Cameron Payne.
Come on, Cameron Payne plays ball, all right? Calm down.
No.
He's not that bad. He's not that bad. I'll agree with you.
The fact that he's still in the league, that says a good job, Cam Payne.
All right, I'll agree with you. Suns won the trade deadline. We'll see what happens. But what I'm seeing is a huge rise in unhappy players around the NBA. I mean, that's how this trade deadline happened, right? It was all about the unhappy players. And you know what? I think that trend's probably going to continue, right? I think about it. To me, it started for me. You can go back to maybe like Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen days when they joined over to the Celtics. That was kind of little, grunges or whatever, where they started to form as superpowers. So you can kind of go back as far as you want. But for me, I go back to James Harden in OKC. And you think about a lot of the players we're talking about. We're talking about James Harden. We're talking about Kevin Durant. We're talking about Russell Westbrook and all these different teams they've been on. If you remember, they were the superpowers. Yeah. They had the key in their hand. Could you imagine if James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Russell Westbrook found a way to play together in OKC?
Also had Serge Ibaka and Jeff Green, so they
were
had
stacked. They were stacked. It was the greatest team. I thought that they were going to beat that Miami Heat team. They should have. I thought Miami Heat was going to lose back-to-back finals. Yep. I thought it was going to be the curse of LeBron James. Like, this dude's never going to win a champion. He'll be the greatest player of all time and never win a championship. They pull it off. And it seemingly basically exploded from there, also thanks to the Golden State Warriors dynasty, which shortly followed after. But since then, Harden's been traded 2 more times because of his demand. KD and Russell Westbrook, also a part of that underachieving OKC team, as I mentioned, both left their respective teams 3 or more times. I know KD left in the offseason or whatever once, but the thing is, superstars like that aren't supposed to change teams whenever the hell they want. And I know there's no rules or anything, you could do what you want, but I'm just saying. Like I said, we saw it with 3-6 Lafayette. Kristaps Porzingis wanted out in New York City for no real reason at all. We've seen it through a bunch of different people. So I'm thinking the next guy, in my opinion, that's on the move because he's unhappy, I'm going with Ja Morant.
Oh, he's still young.
I'm going with Ja Morant. I think I love that he's the perfect person for Memphis. He's the perfect fit for that city, but the guy wants to win. He's that kind of competitor. He goes into the NBA playoffs, gets bounced in the first league, and you don't give him nothing in the offseason.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell me Ja Morant's not going to be mad at the next trade deadline?
I think he wants to run it with his young group and see how far they could stretch it, and then maybe 2-3 years, and we'll see where it's at.
I don't know. I could see him pretty upset next year.
As a whole, I love how you broke down the unhappy player, and it's really concerning. You and I are both big basketball fans. I grew up loving the team and the players on my team that I rooted for. Obviously, the Lakers. That generation is completely behind us now. You pinpointed it. I like your date. My date, I think, is probably 2 years prior. It's LeBron's decision, but that was different. This was player empowerment where LeBron was taking the decision out of the front office and controlling his own business and destiny and career path, which now looking back, like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, why are we going to force some guy in the front office who's only looking out for his best interests, controlling these multi-billion-dollar entities in one individual player? So I look at it as that stage. But since then, it's completely changed to where every single player that gets disgruntled with playing time, with I'm not winning a chip, with the grass is probably greener on the other side over there, we're seeing it year in, year out. You think about Dwight Howard in Orlando. That was a 3-year hiatus of him whining. You brought up James Harden, where he's done it 2 or 3 times. Fat James Harden in Houston was saying, like, no, what are we playing for? Like, we have nothing to play for. We're not a good team. Like, forcing his way out and killing his trade stock there, and then doing the same thing a couple months later in Brooklyn because he didn't get along with Kyrie. Speaking of Kyrie, he was still under contract and a defending champion with the Cleveland Cavaliers when he said, no, I want my own team. I don't want to play with LeBron. Like, what are you doing? They trade him a year before they even needed to. He goes to Boston. He tells the Boston fans, I will stay here if you guys would still want me. Everyone goes crazy, basically said that he's going to stay there long term. He forces his way out to go to Brooklyn. What happens in Brooklyn? He complains. He says, no, I can never leave my guy number 7. 2-3 months later, he does the same thing. Like, every single one of these players that are at the high profile, they're liars, 1, and 2, they have no loyalty towards any fan base, towards any organization. And I'm not saying to be 100% devoted, let the team in the front office dictate everything of your career. I'm saying there's got to be ebb and flow. There's got to be give and pull with that.
I won't be surprised if Kyrie Irving's not on the Mavericks next year.
Yeah. Oh, he's coming to the Lakers.
Like, this might be I think he's a hired gun just for this playoffs and see what happens.
Yeah.
But
he's either coming to the Lakers or Chris Paul leaves the Suns, goes somewhere off in the sunset, and Kyrie goes to Phoenix. Those are the only 2 options.
Yeah,
he's not
I don't
going
see him
back
going to Phoenix. I feel like KD is not a big fan of Kyrie Irving right now.
So as a whole, I'm just a little concerned of the NBA over the next decade because all of these younger players that are coming in, they're seeing what their the people before them laid the groundwork for. Like, if you're disgruntled, you throw a fit. I think Ja Morant's a great call. That could potentially happen. I hate to say it, but it might happen with Anthony Davis. Like, we all seen the shot of his reaction to LeBron James breaking the all-time scoring record. He looked disgruntled. He looked tired. And it's like, his excuse afterwards was like, no, I was mad that you're down 4 because you're playing horrible. So do something about it on the court, and you're not losing. Go cheer on your boy that you came to L.A. with. I think this whole generation can be summed up in one word of the NBA. The Tinder generation. They're swiping left on their franchises, and as soon as they don't like it, swipe right or whatever. Yeah. I've never been on Tinder. I've been with my wife for now a long time, so not my generation.
But those are options that are out there. And what I'm saying is that that's been a problem in the NBA for a long time, but it hasn't affected the product. So that's why I don't think it's going to change. If anything, I think the NBA's popularity has gone up, and there is still a few good superstars out there, like my boy Joel Embiid, who should be the MVP this year. He's happy in Philly. He's not looking for a way out. He's looking for a way to fix it there. And there's just certain different players. But he's also a big man. Yeah. I feel like anytime there's been a big man superstar, it's different. It's always the more flashy, the more skilled guys that want to move and they think they're going to get instant success. I think the only thing that'll save this is if some homegrown team wins a championship. So with that being said,
Giannis in Milwaukee kind of deal.
Exactly. So with that being said, who's got the best chance out of the East and the West to win the championship this year? I'll go first. I'll start with the East. You follow me up, and then you take the West first. I'm going to start with the East. I'm going with Philadelphia 76ers. Might be a homer move. You could say what you want, all right? Embiid should be the MVP, okay? He should be it this year. I don't want another Buster Jokic MVP trophy. I don't care if he's averaging a triple-double, okay? Give it to Embiid, damn it. He's averaging 33 points. He's averaging over 33 points for consecutive seasons as a true big man. Crazy. 10-4, just gooning underneath the boards, and he has us only 3 games back of the Celtics. We still play the Celtics 2 more times. We're coming for him. I wouldn't be surprised if we finish with the number 1 seed in the East, okay? The Sixers are playing ball. Harden looks like Harden again. He's hitting those step-back threes, and he's not playing selfish ball where he's trying to average 30, which I think Harden plays his best game. When you take it back to those OKC days, yes, he was a younger guy, and he had superstars around him, but what did he do? He came in, he averaged 18 points. He still averaged 8 or 9 assists coming off the bench. That was his game, and he's getting back to it. I think he knows he needs to get back to it. And on top of it, we got some of his old Houston running mates with him that are goons, and that's how they played. They played tough. We got PJ Tucker, we got Daniel House. They like to play, and we also signed Dedmon. He's a old time NBA vet, big man, easy in the spell. Joel Embiid, and then we also have Montrezl Harrell, so we can go double bigs to make up for the lack of having Embiid's skill and size down low. So we can get Dedmon in there on defense, Montrezl Harrell on the low block for a little bit of offense, and we can still play the same kind of ball. And then on top of it, we got everybody's new favorite player in the league in my boy, Mac McClung. So, I'm going Sixers. Great job, Mac McClung. It took a G Leaguer to save the dunk competition for 1 year. I still wasn't that impressed, all right? It was some good dunks. I know he's a little bit shorter.
Spud web vibes. That's what it
looked
like.
Vibes, you know, and it was all spirals. To me, it was all the same thing. You know, I mean, it was a lot of similarity. I'm not trying to knock you, Mac McClung. And I remember you at Texas Tech, so I know you're a baller, so I want to see you get some playing time. I remember you being a good shot at Texas Tech when them Red Raiders went on a run.
Georgetown.
No, Mac McClung's Texas Tech, baby. Red Raider all day.
Really?
Yep, he was part of that team that went to the Final Four.
Alex Caruso, Texas A&M?
I don't know.
Different white guy, different
But
day.
yeah, Mac McClung, Texas Tech, for sure. I hope he plays ball for the Sixers, but I'm going Sixers number 1.
All right, fair. In the East, it's obvious. Who's the most unstoppable force? Who is the greatest player on the planet today? Who is still in his prime and getting better? It's Giannis. So the NBA moves as the best, most dominant player moves. And to me, as long as he's healthy, the Bucks are the favorite to come out the East. You throw in Drew Holiday having a career year, best season he's ever had, and that says something for a guy who's been in the league over a decade now. I really like what they could put together in a 7-game series, and when push comes to shove, Giannis just takes over. Like the fact that the Celtics beat them last year in Game 7, that's probably one of those anomalies where Chris Middleton wasn't healthy. They're playing without, at that time, their second, third best player. So the Celtics had a major opportunity to come through. Grant Williams hit 7-8 threes in Game 7.
On fire that
Something
game.
like when your 9th best player goes hot like that, like you might win a game and therefore win the series.
Yep.
Bucks are still the best team. Bucks are going to get to the finals in the East. I'm no doubt about that. They've won 12 in a row. They're playing hot right now.
They're playing
half game behind the Celtics. I would not be surprised if they end up with that number 1 seed overall. Going to your Philadelphia 76ers pick, I just don't like Doc Rivers in the postseason. Like, he's shown us time and time again.
This is his year, damn it.
Yeah, he's had this year his year over and over. Blew with the Clippers. He did win one with the Celtics.
He cashed in with the Celtics, all right? Don't hate on Doc that hard. Come on.
If we're flipping to the West, I really got to love what the Suns did. Like, if we're looking specifically at postseason and playoff basketball, Suns are healthy. They're probably the most formidable. But if Denver, and they should, I think they're up 4 games over the second seed right now of Memphis. If Denver gets that home court advantage and teams have to go there on not the second night of a back-to-back, but like
high
back
altitude.
and forth to that high altitude, to that running team. They just added Reggie Jackson. They just added Thomas Bryant. 2 smaller additions, but great pickups. Not to mention Contavious Caldwell-Pope, NBA champion, who knows what he's doing out there. Like, they've added a great roster around Jokic. Aaron Gordon from 2 years ago. You throw in whatever you can get from Michael Porter Jr., whatever you're going to get from Jamal Murray. Like, Denver, with the home field advantage, has an advantage in my opinion, but you got to look at the best players. It's Giannis, it's Kevin Durant for me. That's the NBA. Let's just not rule out the Lakers quite yet. Get into that play-in, win the play-in, upset one of these teams. I think the Lakers can go to Denver and beat them. Why not? And then the Lakers can come out of the West and win the championship.
I'm going to agree with a lot of stuff you said right there.
You're going to let me slide that in.
Come
on, baby.
No, I like the Lakers. I got a hot take out there that's aging poorly right now, that the Lakers are going to make the Western Conference Finals this year.
I like it.
But I think it's going to come back to prevalence here. I like what they did at the trade deadline. I like the Lakers, but they're definitely not the best team in the West. I think the Suns may have the best starting 5 ever.
Oh, come on.
I don't know. We'll have to get into that. Maybe we could debate it one other day, but I do like the Suns a lot, but I'm sticking with the Nuggets, and I think it's because of the consistency of their roster. You mentioned it. They're up big on the Western Conference right now. It's actually 5 games that they're up, and Jokic is trying to steal another MVP from my boy Joel Embiid. He's averaging a triple-double. It's like 25, 11.5, and 10.5 or something crazy. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. actually look ready to go. They look like legit 2 and 3 options for him. They're scoring. Michael Porter's been his most consistent self, even though I know he's dealing with a lot of off-the-court stuff. He's still played great basketball all year. And then, like you said, you can't forget about Aaron Gordon, right? The kid is playing his best basketball I've ever seen him play. And if you remember him as an Arizona Wildcat, you knew he was immensely talented. And I think the Denver Nuggets are finally going to get their chance this year. I feel like they've been begging for this for so long and trying for so long. They finally are all healthy at the same time. Knock on the yellow table that they stay healthy and that we get to see the best basketball we can in the playoffs. But with that being said, I'm going Nuggets, you're going Suns, you're going Bucks, I'm going Sixers. I think they're all valiant picks, and I can't wait for the NBA to just get deeper and deeper.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. NBA playoffs is going to be here before we know it. But what is here even before is another edition of Jeremy's Power Rankings. All right, Jeremy, what's the topic this episode?
All right, so we're getting into late February. Spring's around the corner. Summer's around the corner. Everyone's going to be scheduling their vacations, their family trips, their weekend getaways, whatever it may be. Jason, you're a person that loves to travel, has been around America a little bit. I've seen a handful of great cities. Today, we're going to do the top 5 U.S. cities to visit, and we've actually been to these cities, so it's like a little bit of experience with those. So cities that you've actually visited, what are the top 5 U.S. cities to go? For me, starting at 5, I'm going to start in the Pacific Northwest. 2 cities up there, the 2 biggest hubs. That's going to be my 5 and my 4. At number 5 is going to be Portland, Oregon. More so, I love the surrounding area of Oregon within maybe a 15, 30-minute drive of Portland. So you get the weirdness of Portland. You get a great craft brewery scene that they have up there. I think Oregon has the most craft breweries per capita, meaning based off population, out of any state in America. And then you have Multnomah Falls, which is a gorgeous waterfall 15, 20 minutes away from downtown Portland. You have the Oneonta Gorge, which is one of the coolest hikes I've ever been on. Moss everywhere, green trees. It's just gorgeous terrain up there. You go 3 miles north of that to my number 4 city, Seattle. That feels like a little more of a melting pot of different cultures. You got a lot of Asian communities coming in to the Seattle area. You have Bellevue, Washington, right across the water, which is one of the most cleanest and gorgeous cities within connected to Seattle. But love the downtown area. Went up to the Space Needle. You get such a great view. You get Mount Rainier in the background. So picturesque right there. The Puget Sound. We did a little ferry ride around the water there. Seattle and Portland right there at 5 and 4. Moving on to number 3. One of the biggest cities in the world, if not the biggest, New York City for me. I went there over a decade ago, so I need to go back. It's been on the bucket list to go back and experience it again as more of an adult. But I went and got to experience the whole Times Square experience, more tourist stuff, though. Went to Ellis Island, went to the top of the Rockefeller Center, Rockefeller Plaza, top of the Empire State Building. Just walking through Central Park, you know how many movies have been filmed there and everything else with history that's gone on in that area. Just being in New York, it made you feel like, all right, something's cool happening. This is pretty important here. So New York City, number 3 for me. Number 2, the city of New Orleans. I went there for a work trip. I was working sports retail in my previous career. I helped the Saints out for a playoff game. So I got to go down to New Orleans, work at the Superdome. That whole city, that whole region, not just the city, the whole state, let me say, of Louisiana is devoted to their Saints. And to have a home playoff game, this was the divisional game before they got the screwed up call against the Rams that eventually led the Rams to the Super Bowl. So this is the divisional round. I think it was against the Eagles, actually, now that I think about it. But having the whole city there, experiencing different cultures, because we were setting up retail shops all throughout. So just mingling with people that live there and understanding their devotion to the Saints and how much they love the city. But then after the Saints win, I think it's a Saturday night game, we go out to Bourbon Street. And let's just say you don't get back to your hotel till about 4 or 5 a.m. and the streets and how it's just like a simple grid. And today's Mardi Gras, the day that we're recording this on Tuesday. Perfect plug. New Orleans. For those of you that have been there, you know what I'm talking about. You know the vibes there. For those of you that haven't, it's definitely a bucket list type of city to go. But the Superdome itself, one of the coolest stadiums I've ever been into. After the game, we were able to go on the field. We were throwing touchdowns. I was catching balls in the end zone. So the experience of New Orleans for me was super, super cool. The number 1 city right now, probably because it's the most recent, is Chicago. Everything in Chicago is so close and compact to that downtown area. You could walk basically wherever you want to get to wherever you needed to go. In LA, you can't do that. LA is so sprawled out. New York is so sprawled out. All these other cities are pretty sprawled out.
You gotta drive and you can't drive.
Exactly. In Chicago and New Orleans, for that matter, you could walk to where you wanted to go. But it was a work event. We went there for, I think, 4 nights. There's the thing called the Navy Pier that has this gorgeous backdrop of the entire skyline right at sunset, and we got catered around to multiple different things. Went to a game at Wrigley, so got to see the Cubs in that historic stadium. So maybe I'm a creature of most recency bias, I should say. Chicago is the number 1 U.S. city for me to travel to.
Nice. I love that list. I've been to 3 of your 5.
Which three?
So I've been to New York City, I've been to Portland, and I've been to Chicago.
Okay.
2 of them are on my list. Portland's not on my list, but I went there as a sailor in the Navy for Rose Parade.
Okay.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome, but I was like 21 years old and like literally just bounced from bar to bar and probably totally wasted the experience. I could have gone on like those cool hikes and things like that. So I didn't get the feel for it. Actually, we stopped in Astoria, Oregon, where they shot a movie you may have heard of, The Goonies, before. And that was a super cool little town, actually. And we did like a cool thing at the VFW where we did like a sponsorship for the VFW and did this whole
it's right on the
presentation
corner
for them. Yeah.
Corner of the state, right by the Pacific Ocean. Did you go to Seaside, Oregon?
We just stopped in Astoria for one night, Portland for one night, and then we were gone.
That makes sense.
So it's like I didn't get to do much, but I did get to drink some beer in Portland. And at the Rose Festival, it's a celebration for the Navy, so everybody was showing us nothing but love there. So, I mean, it was an awesome, quick pit stop. It was a lot of fun. So Portland definitely can get an honorable mention from me. I'd love to go back, though, now
for sure.
With a little more of an attentive eye for finding some cool hikes, seeing some cool stuff. Yeah. So I definitely want to go back to Portland. I definitely have always wanted to go to Seattle. But number 5 on my list is one that was on your list, too. Chicago. I didn't spend a whole lot of time there. I got out of boot camp, and then Great Lakes, my A school, was there. So I was there in the engineering Common Core for 3 months. So what do you do on the weekend when you're in Great Lakes? You go to Chicago. Yeah. So we go to Chicago. I got to see the Mets play in Chicago. I had to buy scalp tickets from some guy in a bar.
White Sox or Cubs?
Cubs.
Okay.
So I got to go to Wrigley Field. I bought the tickets right because if you know, Wrigley Field is like smack dab in the city.
Yeah.
So like literally across the street from the stadium, there's people hanging out of bar room windows and stuff like
apartments
that.
too.
And that's where I bought risky scalp tickets off the street. Luckily, they looked real and they were real. I got in, but they were standing room only. If you've ever been to Wrigley Field, you can buy standing room only tickets.
Yeah.
But it was my only chance to see the Mets in Wrigley Field. It's a small bucket list to see the Mets play in every stadium in the MLB. So I was there. I said, you know what? I got to take advantage of this while I'm here. I did it. It was awesome. But I also was there for a thing called the Taste of Chicago. And they do it right downtown Chicago, right by the Navy Pier. And there's nothing but food vendors there. The food was amazing. And being right there on the Great Lakes, I mean, there's just tons of cool stuff to do. I barely even saw the tip of the iceberg while I was there. And it was a fantastic city. Never had any issues. Coming there for the first time from New Jersey, everything was way more expensive, though. I was noticing, like, I was on a cigarette smoker back then, and Marlboro Light packs were like $10 in downtown Chicago or something ridiculous. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? But other than that, the city was fantastic, and they actually have a pretty good like train system too. Down there too, with all the little train flats and the elevated train system. So Chicago's cool. You can get around easy, like you said, and there's tons of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Number 4, another one on Jeremy's list, New York City, right? It's probably number 1 when you just want to talk about cities in the U.S. that you should go see, right? So I was spoiled. I grew up in New Jersey. It was easy for me to get to New York City, so I've been there quite a few handful of times. My first time I took my wife to the East Coast, we went up there for the Macy's Day Parade around Thanksgiving.
How cool is that?
Oh, it was badass. Took her to Central Park, things like that. We got dirty water hot dogs and walked into Central Park and did the whole thing, rode the subway. We took the train up from Jersey right up into Penn Station and just got out and just walked around. And you don't even really need to know where you're going. You're guaranteed you're going to find eclectic people. You're going to find good food and nothing but mountainous, landmark, historic buildings shooting up from the ground. It's literally hard to see the sun if you're walking in certain angles because of the buildings. And then if you've ever walked across a crosswalk in New York City, it's like literally just two mobs of people that convene and somehow make it to the next side of the street.
So much life going on.
Oh, it's bustling. But really one of my favorite things about New York City is to walk up into Central Park. Even if you just take a few steps inside and just kind of look around and be surrounded by that greenery, but then also see like the silhouettes of all the buildings around. Central Park is one of the coolest places you can go. And I highly recommend New York City just for the historic and magnitude alone value that you would get from it. So out of anything on this list, if you got a chance to go to New York City, definitely go there. Number 3, city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Also a very cool city with very one-of-a-kind food options. If you've had a Philly cheesesteak in Philly, then you know you've had a Philly cheesesteak. Other than that, you've just...
What is it, Geno's or...
Pat's. So those are the two. I love them both personally. Really, the main difference is regular cheddar cheese or Cheese Whiz out of a can. So it depends. Hey, don't knock it till you try. I'm telling you. Don't knock it till you try. The Pat's
Not mozzarella cheese?
It's cheddar.
But what is the other one? It's just all cheddar. They don't do like mozzarella. Or
That's what I'm telling you. If you haven't had a Philly cheesesteak, then you've only had a cheesesteak. Okay.
Yeah.
So go to Philadelphia, get yourself a Philly cheesesteak. All right, enjoy yourself. That's going to be good. But it's actually a great sports city with a surprisingly awesome low key music kind of venue and diversity in it. You can go to cool little clubs like the Electric Factory. I saw Wu-Tang perform in the Electric Factory. I saw Talib Kweli perform in the Electric Factory, and he wasn't even supposed to have Mos Def there, and Mos Def came out, and it turned into a Black Star concert, and it was sick. So, I mean, there's lots of cool places you can go. You can see a lot of great music, not only hip-hop, all different kinds. And then South Street, if you've ever been to South Street on a Friday or a Saturday night, it's basically a car show going down the street. I actually saw a guy get a lady's number while a cop was writing him his ticket in this, like, crazy, like... It was back like during like the No Limit Records times and stuff like that. And he had one of those camouflage like chameleon paint jobs on this drop top BMW. And that's just normal Friday night on South Street in Philly. It's a cool place to go. Definitely highly recommend. So number 3, Philadelphia. Number 2, America's finest city, San Diego.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, and it probably truly is America's finest city. So I was stationed in San Diego. So I lived in San Diego for about 6 years, met my wife in San Diego. We lived there for about 3 years before moving up here to the Ventura County area. And we loved it. I mean, San Diego is really cool, and there's tons of stuff to do. Whether you're in downtown, the Gaslamp area, or checking out one of the coastal communities like Ocean Beach. I loved Imperial Beach. I lived in Imperial Beach, literally one exit from the Mexico border. Funny story, my wife, first time she came over to my apartment, she took the south entrance instead of the north entrance and literally ended up in Mexico and had to do the old turnaround in Mexico job. She called me and she's like, I think I just drove into Mexico. I'm like, what the hell did you do that for? And they just made the rule where you're supposed to have like your passport to go into Mexico, where before you could get through with like a driver's license. Luckily, they were cool. They let her in, but it's an awesome city, awesome beach communities. Another spot with great craft brewery. Some people call it the birthplace of craft brewery.
What's your favorite beach there?
My favorite beach is Imperial Beach. I lived there. I lived there for 3 years. It's super cool. It's low key. I mean, you go down to the Imperial Beach Pier and there's like 7-year-old kids shooting the pier on surfboards. There's a real cool community down there.
Yeah.
Super laid back, super like local vibes there. If I had to pick another one, I'd probably go Pacific Beach. That's where I met. Pacific Beach is where I met my wife at this little like house party at a quad, like literally a block from the beach.
Shore Club on Pacific Beach?
No, not the Shore Club. I know what you're talking about though. I know Shore Club. But yeah, so we just met there, and it's cool. That's like the true college part of San Diego.
Yeah,
Pacific Beach, walking down Grand and Garnett Avenue right there with all the bars. Tons of fun down there. San Diego, great city. Then on top of it, if that's not your move with the partying and that kind of scene, you also got literally the best zoo in the country. It is unbeatable. If you thought you've been to a good zoo, go to San Diego Zoo. It'll be better. And then plus you got SeaWorld too, which is also fun for the family too to go and check it out. Number one, though. You probably may have never heard of it, and maybe the residents of this city will be mad that I'm bringing it up, but Cape May, New Jersey is by far my favorite city that I can go visit in the U.S. right now. If I can go visit, I would. It definitely gets some extra points from my childhood. My parents would take my sister and I there all the time in the summer. We had like a little double-wide beach kind of camper that my grandpa had, and he let the family just use it forever. It was like he had it for years and years and years, and it was awesome. I mean, it's a cool little city. It's filled with Victorian homes, right on the coast, some of the best upkept beaches of New Jersey, delicious food. You're right around tons of boardwalks, which are loaded with nothing but arcades, giant slices of pizzas, birch beer, and any carnival game you can ever imagine blowing $20 on is right there. They also have a bitchin' little zoo that we would always go to once a summer as a kid growing up. So for me, number one, best city that I could visit in the U.S., I'm going Cape May, New Jersey.
Cape May. That reminds me a lot.
May. M-A-Y. Cape May.
Cape May. Good to know. A couple spots like that in the Bay Area. There's a Point Reyes that my wife and I love, and that's where we went a bunch of times. San Francisco probably could have been on my list now that I look at it in hindsight, but that's where we're at. Great cities there to visit.
Oh, yeah. Great Power Rankings edition, dude. Love to switch up with the cities to travel to. But one thing we ain't going to switch up is ending the show with Bump and Run. And Bump and Run is brought to you by Sweet Fuel by Jewel. And they are providing you with one-of-a-kind powerful protein bars. And also make sure you try out their delicious protein cookie bites to satisfy those cookie cravings you may be having. And you still get the protein your body actually craves, all right? So check them out in all 4 delicious flavors. You can find them at any Persistence Culture facility or online at Get Sweet Fuel on IG. Jeremy, I'm lined up. Don't hold me like Bradbury, baby. Bump and Run. Let's go.
All right, this unfortunately has nothing to do with sports, and I wanted to go completely off the rails with a random topic that I've just been pondering for the last handful of weeks, but
give it to me.
All right, Jason, what technology do we use every day today in our lives that's going to be completely obsolete in 10 years from now?
Ooh.
Give you a second to think about it. I'll throw a couple options out there that may or may not be the one you're thinking of, but like credit cards, car keys, individual streaming services. I think they're all going to be bundled.
So credit cards and car keys, they sound like low-hanging fruit to me. Like they're already getting phased out.
Yeah.
To me,
like a flash drive. Our kids are going to have no idea what a flash drive is.
No, they're going to have no idea what a flash drive is. Clouds and all that stuff. That's already all happening. For me, I'm going to go with TV, and not from the sense of an actual television itself, which may end up being some form of projection or something like that. But I truly think everything will be streamed. I don't think anyone will have cable. I don't think anyone will have a satellite service in the next 10 years. Which is tough to believe. I was once a diehard DirecTV customer, especially for the Sunday ticket and all that stuff. And I just feel like it's a dying breed. It's on its way out, and like it's not something that people think of because everybody always is attracted by the bundle. Eventually, streaming services will provide their own internet with it and things of that nature. Yeah. And everything's going to be gone except for the streaming services.
I could definitely see that happening. I mean, it's already happening, obviously, but cutting cable out completely, having everything through a streaming service through the internet, and then the conglomerate to bundle those together.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Hulu's not going to stand alone. Paramount's not going to stand alone. HBO Max. Like, you're going to get some conglomerate to loop those together, and then it's all going to be tied. And
I think there'll be three. I think there'll be Amazon. I think there'll be Disney, and then I think there'll be another one founded from like
what's up with Netflix
so Netflix will either join their forces.
Apple TV is going to buy them. Apple TV has the most collateral. They have the most money.
Or Apple would become that third buyer, and they would just stick away from actual mainstream television channels and be an outlier, right? So
Apple and Amazon, I think, have the deepest wallets. So those two are going to be buying up. What's the third one you think? Did you say? Oh, Disney. They have
Disney already has Hulu.
Yeah.
And they're saying that Hulu is already
Disney
basically
owns ESPN.
Hulu's already exactly. And not only ESPN, but also
Marvel and Star Wars
and all these things that people love watching.
they
so
have
they
the
have
libraries.
They have that cornered. Like that.
You
They're not going anywhere.
That's solid. I guess we're going to see what Amazon buys, and they're already in the sports world.
Yep.
So our sports is going to be.
They're already in the NFL world. So it's like that's the world to be in.
The NBA is coming up too, but Apple has the deepest wallets along with these other two conglomerates that's going to be interesting. Over the next 10 years, how we consume our media, it's going to be, I believe, through those three providers.
Apple TV already started jacking MLB games. Last year, there was certain games, like even if you had any package, extra innings, MLB TV, you could only watch it on Apple TV. The only reason I signed up for Apple TV was Jake DeGrom was pitching one night for the Mets, and I had to watch it on freaking Apple TV. So I was like, all right, guess I'm signing up for Apple TV. Let's go.
Dodgers-Giants had a Friday night game only on Apple TV, and I was like, gosh darn you, Apple.
Yep. Here's my $10, you bastards.
Yeah, exactly how our life works.
Yeah, great topic, man. I love this show. Another great episode here at the Yellow Table. We want to thank all of you for listening. And if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please check it out. We got all kinds of crazy shorts always going up there for nostalgia moments, future moments, props, anything you could think of. We got it all on Press Coverage Sports YouTube channel. Look us up today. Subscribe. Thanks for listening. And as we always say at Persistence Culture, keep moving.